So I saw The Devil Wears Prada 2. Yeah, so I just got back from seeing The Devil Wears Prada 2. This will be a spoiler heavy review. I will try to put in some stuff that is spoiler free for the start here. Off the bat, I can say I think it's good. I don't think it's quite as good as the first movie, which is a high bar to clear. But I think if you are clicking on this and watching it before seeing the movie, this is just me saying, go do it, go see it, then come back and watch this. If you are a fan of the first one, I think odds are you will be a fan of this. That's about the most I will say, I think, in terms of keeping this spoiler free, because I don't care about keeping it spoiler free otherwise. Few things I want to get into. Legacy sequel stuff. First thing, there's a lot of fan service in this. I don't want to say there's like way too much. I could have done with like two fewer fan service moments. There was one Easter egg at the end that I caught that I felt like it was tasteful. I was glad they didn't call it out. I almost wondered if they would. So in the very last scene, Andy wears this. She has the cerulean sweater, but it's like a vest, like it's cut off at the sleeves. But it's the same one, the like cerulean sweater from the first movie that Miranda like digs at. So that was a fun little Easter egg. Other stuff, like there's pretty big homages, I would say, to the first movie. Like some of them I feel, I mean, maybe I missed a few, but I feel like there's several that are like not crazy loud, but like they're doing the thing. They don't stop and be like, guys, we're gonna do the thing from the first movie. But like they do it and they're pretty, they know they're doing the fan service thing. I generally am not huge on legacy sequels in general. I think there's a place for them. I think there's too many. We've gotten a lot that are unnecessary. And at first glance, I was inclined to say, do we need a legacy sequel for Devil Wears Prada? Need, no. But I think this is good as one. I said this at some point in the last week or two, but I think this is a case where it's better. Like, I'm glad we got this in 2026 and not 2009. I think because of how the first movie ends, it doesn't want a direct sequel. It wants to let these characters grow up a bit and evolve past, like, because you have some pretty big character changes in the first movie, but I don't think you can like stay true to that change and bring Andy back. I was actually worried about that when I first heard it announced. I was like, the way the first movie ends, how do you justify her coming back to Runway? Because like her whole arc in the first movie is like getting away from it. And surprisingly, I thought that was one of like the cleanest setup things that they had. It was like, oh, bring her in as a journalist. And it works pretty well, honestly. I guess maybe it should have been the obvious solution. I wonder how long it took them in the writing process to get to that point. But I think that's a good solution. It like maintains her character. And I'll jump to this since I'm on it. So updating the characters, we keep our main four. We keep Miranda, Emily, Andy, and Nigel. Nate is not there, which I'm sure made a lot of people happy. I was kind of glad for that too. I don't feel like he's a character that like needs to be redeemed. It's nice that they don't even really mention him. They also keep Lily, I think is her name, Andy's art friend. She's still here and has about the same amount to do. She's a little bit more like plot essential. She's not just like a person for Andy to bounce ideas off of. There's a couple of small but important plot points that she helps justify, I'll say. I think in terms of like bringing back the old characters, I believed Andy's evolution. I was happy with that. I think they did a good job of updating her for the most part. Like she's been around the block a bit with like she's had some new jobs and they start off with like showing us that she is successful in her journalism career but is still like having trouble finding work. And I think that is just realistic. Like, part of what this movie is dealing with as a legacy sequel is what has happened in the last 20 years, which is something that I think a lot of legacy sequels have not had as much of a challenge with. Even stuff that, like, is set in present day, a lot of times, like a Jurassic World or even like a Top Gun Maverick, those are movies that have some kind of like big genre element where, I mean, the military has changed, so like you could say that Top Gun has to deal with that, but a lot of stuff like Jurassic World doesn't have to deal with it that much, like real world change in the way that I think this movie does. Like, work culture is not the same in 2026 as it was in 2006. I don't think that's a hot take to say, but given how much that first movie is like tied to work culture and like anchored in that, and how much it has to say about it, you can't make this sequel and ignore stuff that's happened in the real world. And I don't love every way that it handles that. I'll get back to the characters in a second, but I think that's just an interesting challenge that this legacy sequel has. There are probably others that have had to deal with this too, but they're not coming to mind right now. Certainly, like some of the bigger ones, like I think you can see the sensibilities change. Like, look at like a Blade Runner versus Blade Runner 2049. You're dealing with like more 2010s problems in that sequel, and like the 80s version is dealing with like issues of that time as well. But since they aren't set in like our reality, they're set in a dystopian future, and both movies are set well in the future of their present. You're not really subject to, like, you can create the world, you don't have to like respond to it in the same way that this movie does. I probably have spent too much time on this, but I think it's worth calling out. With the other characters, I think it does make sense for Nigel to stay where he is. I was talking to my friend that I saw it with on the ride home, and we were a little bit not super here for like his character thing this movie, where he's like, I buy the thing where like he's been Miranda's most loyal servant and worker in the time since the first movie. What I don't buy is the like, oh, I'm too timid to ask for what I want. That I feel like is a little inconsistent. I do like the moment that it creates, like that's kind of nice. I just don't really buy that as a character flaw for him. He doesn't seem timid at any point, so I just had a hard time with that. With Emily, I felt like they left her a little bit by the wayside. Like, they do this thing that I feel like could have been handled better from just like a plot and exposition stance, and I think it distances us from her. Like, they have that reveal where she is trying to take over Runway. Her boyfriend is like gonna buy it out. So the scene where that happens, we cut away from it. And I was like, wait, are they going to do a Guy Ritchie thing where they jump back to the conversation and show it to us for some reason? And they never jump back to it. But I'm wondering, like, why did they hide it? I think some of it is that, like, there's a bit of an obvious, like, reveal problem. Like, Andy asks Emily earlier, like, oh, why'd you leave Runway? You loved it there, XYZ. And Emily kind of waves it away. And I don't buy that, like I think Andy should have clocked that more. Because I think it's fairly obvious that like something happened. We don't know what. We do find out that like Miranda pushed her out because she thinks she has no taste. I think there could have been more done with that. Like, we certainly get enough time with Emily. I kind of wish we had seen that as her flaw a little more, like, because I think part of her believes what Miranda, like that dig Miranda has at her of like, it's, you're not a visionary, you're a vendor. And I think there's a part of Emily that believes that, and I wish that insecurity was showing more in the choices she makes. Like I think there's a little bit of it there, like that tour of Dior that they have early on. You can see like hints of it, but I think they could have made more of a character thing for her. Like they might have left her a little by the wayside. And I felt like Miranda, this was another thing I talked about with my friend on the ride home. I think they kind of neutered Miranda a little bit. And I'm not quite sure where that comes from. Like some of it is they have that like recurring joke where it's like she kind of has to be like PC policed a little bit where she's like, "Oh, can I not say that?" A bunch of times. Sometimes it's funny. I felt like it's not quite as funny as I thought the movie seemed to think it was. There's some good lines in there, but it's kind of like she's not allowed to be full Miranda Priestley, which is kind of what I mean when I say that they neutered her. It's like she can't have her iconic insults like she did in the first movie. And for a lot of it, like I felt like they were trying really hard to make us sympathize with her. And as I was getting ready to do this review, I think I realized what my confusion is. It feels like they're afraid of demonizing something. And I can't tell if they're afraid of demonizing Miranda or they're afraid of demonizing capitalism. Because it almost seems like I'll get into this more when I talk about the themes. The way that she is such a great villain in that first movie and is like has all these iconic harsh lines and like is truly terrible to Andy at several points. Like there are some things like people have done the like redemption of Miranda Priestley thing where they're like she's not the real bad guy, she's just doing her job. And like I hear that, but there are some things that are just like she is just being cruel in that first movie. And we never get any moment like that. Like the sequence where she tells Andy to go get the new Harry Potter manuscript and like has her get the steak. That whole sequence is very cruel. It's not like for any purpose of her own. She's just setting up Andy to fail. And that kind of side of her personality is not really here in this movie. She's still like tenacious in her work to an extent. I feel like they even toned that down though. Like I think if you were coming into this hoping for like some iconic Miranda Priestley shit, you're not gonna get it. And I do feel a little bit cheated with that. And I'm wondering why that is. It almost feels like a studio note. But I wonder, are they worried about what demonizing her will say? Or is there some, like, why do we need to make her likable? Because I feel like the first movie does a good job of, like, straddling, making her villainous and, like, somebody that is fun in a villainous way, but is genuinely bad. And then also having a lot of empathy for her and humanizing her. There's a couple scenes and like smaller details that don't stand out on first watch, but they do a really good job of humanizing her. I didn't feel that quite as much here. I feel like that is the place that this movie falls short the most is like Miranda's not really Miranda anymore. And I wonder if there's like something that got lost in earlier drafts. Because I'll move into themes now. Probably this movie's biggest thematic statement is enshittification is the villain. Go look up that term if you're not familiar with it. I don't know who's going to be watching this. The goal of the movie is to preserve Runway and preserve Miranda's place at the top and not let the like tech bros take it over basically, or the businessmen who want to just like turn it into a product. So I'd say that's the cleanest theme is like enshittification bad. And I think it has some stuff to say about it, like that's in the text of the movie, and it's well positioned to discuss that. And again, in a perfect world, is that the theme that naturally arises from the first movie? No, not necessarily. It is where I think these characters would be given what has happened in the world in the past 20 years. Like, that is the state of those industries. Print journalism is basically dead. It's all clickbait. They have like a lot of moments that emphasize that Runway is not a magazine anymore, and it hasn't been for at least a decade, it sounds like, because how many magazines exist anymore? Like, the world has changed and it has updated, and the conflict is basically fighting against that and fighting to maintain like some level of integrity and still be able to. They talk about it more in context of journalism than fashion, but it's kind of like, can you do the clickbaity thing that will get people's attention while also making it good? Which I think is a very real struggle that a lot of jobs have now. Certainly anything to do with pop culture. Like, I think that's it, it's not really a new thing, but I think because of the internet, that has changed. I shouldn't spend too much time on this topic. I think in 2006 you had a setting. This is coming from somebody who knows nothing about fashion, but you had tastemakers back then, not just in fashion, but in a lot of things. And now that things have become more democratized, where like tastemakers are not necessarily appointed, they are put there by virality. It's more about popularity than about like networking, if we want to look at it that way. It's about influencer culture. They don't really like specifically touch on influencer culture, but it's kind of like beneath the surface. And that's kind of what they're fighting against a bit, is like, because of that new landscape that Runway is existing in, do they have to sacrifice quality for that? Again, that I think is the most consistent statement it has. It does seem to have a problem with some other things. Like, I'm not the best person to go into this, but I did clock like the initial article. I'm kind of glad they don't spend a lot of time on it, but I almost wish they had just picked a different inciting incident, because they have that first hit piece against Runway and Miranda where they're like, she employed like a sweatshop, basically, which I have a hard time believing they weren't employing sweatshops in the first movie. Like, that's a little bit tough to buy. They also get past that fairly quickly. It's just kind of a way to bring Andy in, I think, like from a plot sense. But they do this thing where it's like, oh, Miranda didn't know. And again, I have a hard time buying that for a few reasons. Like, one, I think she's got her ear to the ground more. She would have vetted the people that she like had a business relationship with. Like, that decision would have gone through her. She would have checked, I think. Also, I don't think she's above using sweatshops. Like, you look at how she treats every other person in the first movie. There's no way that she gets to where she is without like I think she employs sweatshop workers. And I think we just, again, that's kind of where I feel like they're afraid to demonize Miranda too much. And they're kind of right too, because if she did do that, like, I was kind of waiting for that reveal. I was like, is the reveal going to be that she did know about it? And that has some fallout. I think the problem is she's not redeemable after that point. Part of me wishes the movie had the balls to go there. I also feel like maybe that critique's been done, and it's kind of good that they went in a different direction, so that they can, because I think there are other things that can call out sweatshops. Like, that's not exactly a hot take in 2026, that like sweatshops bad. Like, this movie is positioned to explore some things that others aren't. And it did seem to go with that. It went with the like updating work culture. Like, what does that look like now? And I think it's almost like worthwhile to just check in. Like, you can justify this movie's entire existence with just like, where are these characters now? And what does that say about the world now versus 20 or 2006? Like that's enough reason to make this movie in isolation. Yeah, so I think it has a bit of a tenuous relationship with how exactly it villainizes or doesn't villainize late stage capitalism. And I'll try not to be like super leftist about this because one, I haven't done the right reading. Two, that video is gonna get made. I'm sure that like anyone who likes making movie critiques that are also capitalism critiques, they have a lot to go off of in this, and I will watch those videos. It's trying to have its cake and eat it, but I think it does make it level some like real critique just by virtue of how hard these characters are still having to work. Like I think the kind of dream ending of the first movie is Andy presumably gets a dream job or like gets on the right track in her career, and we don't even like have a moment of showing like, oh, that dream is hollow or something, and she didn't get what she wanted. She did, and she's had a successful career since then, but she's still kind of struggling to like make rent, which is sad. And at the ending of the movie, with like all with her back at Runway working full time in the role she wants, I was like, this is like a fantasy ending. Not to say that it couldn't happen, but it's like, damn, how hard is that to do? To like find the job that you love and pays well and is secure. I think that was a dream that seemed a lot more realistic because of how the job market worked in 2006. And it's kind of nuts that Andy, as a 40-year-old, is still having to like grind the way she did in her 20s in the first movie. It's sad because it's realistic, and I feel like I just brought the energy out of the room, even though I'm the only one in it. It does end up putting almost too nice of a face on it. And I don't even know if that's a bad thing. Like, I don't feel like this is being like too nice, but it's maybe like sidestepping some thornier problems. I don't know if I can really articulate all of it now. I think somebody will probably come along with like a take that encapsulates it better. But one thing that I think does make that theme ring a little bit stronger is that like Miranda's not immune to any of that struggle. She is struggling just as much. She's not at the top of the food chain, which I was like interested to see if they would take that kind of angle. Like we kind of have her on the back foot the whole movie. And in some ways that's like powerful thematically. I think it makes the movie a little less fun and makes her a little less iconic, but it kind of shows, and I think it's even consistent with the first movie, that like her being at the top, it's not really the top because there's like the shareholders and there's the money above her. And I'm wondering if I need to update my like value system take to include that somehow. Maybe that'll be what I make a video about. Because I do plan to make a video about this to capitalize on the one little blow up I had with the first video 5 years ago. I don't know what it's going to be about yet, though. I don't know if there's enough that's done with the value system to really say more about it. Maybe, but I'm not sure yet. I guess two other random notes. One, Stanley Tucci needs to open his mouth. I like couldn't understand half of what he's saying. I still like him here, but I think he might be doing some Botox and stuff because I feel like I couldn't understand like 30% of the words he said. Like I noticed it from his very first line. I was like, oh, what's going on with his voice? Why does it sound like he's covering his mouth? Because I can't understand what he's saying. I like Stanley Tucci. I still like Nigel. That was weird and I didn't like it. One other just writing note. I felt like they had a little bit of a narrative momentum problem. I'd say about 60% of the way through the movie, I found myself asking, like, wait, what's the goal again? Like, I know there's, like, conflict. I know there's, like, people that they don't want that are about to take over the company, but, like, what is the goal in this scene? In this, like, when they're in Italy, what is the goal here? It's not like they did no work, but I almost felt like I needed them to make a bit more of a plan and tell us what it was. And I feel like kind of a normie for saying that. I generally find it annoying when like movies slow down a little too much for the audience, but I think I kind of needed that here. Just like one time. I appreciate that it wasn't doing the like, oh, we're afraid the audience is looking at their phone thing and like reminding us the plot every 5 minutes, because that would have been more annoying. I wanted one line like that, like after the midpoint or so. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else. There's plenty to be said. I'm sure more will be said. I'm interested to hear other people's takes. Oh, I guess I'll just throw this in because this is fun. I don't know if anyone else cares, but so my D&D crew that I've been playing with for about a year and a half, somehow we discovered that despite all of us being from fairly different backgrounds, all five of us love this movie, or the first one. And like Emily Blunt became kind of a recurring joke that we had in our campaign. And then we found out the sequel was happening. And one guy made a mini campaign that we just played called The Dragon Wears Prada. And made there's so much fan service in it. Like there are, he did not see it with me. I'm probably going to see it with all of them at some point again. I can't wait because there's one line in particular where a guy at the cafeteria meeting calls her Miranda Beastly, which is what my friend named her. He like renamed everything, and that was the name he gave Miranda. I can't wait for him to see that. It felt like an Easter egg for exclusively me in the theater. So I don't know if he can like publish it, but it was a fun campaign, and it was too bad we couldn't all go together this weekend when it opened. But I'm looking forward to doing it. I don't know if anyone cares, but that's a fun little thing. Yeah, I don't know if I have any more to say, but I'll probably make a longer video. Maybe I'll get some more thoughts together and I can have something cohesive to say. But I had a good time with this. There's not quite as much to unpack as with the first movie. I don't know if it's going to age quite as gracefully, but I think it's a worthy update. I was kind of afraid that they wouldn't be able to pull it off. I kind of was like, there might not be a good way to make a Devil Wears Prada sequel, and I am happy to say I was wrong. There is a good way. It could be better, but they had some difficult challenges. They had a lot of boxes to check with this. And like I said, they had the challenge of like, what has happened in the real world in the past 20 years? You kind of have to deal with that, given the themes of the first movie. And like just staying true to those characters. That's a hard balance to strike. And they didn't get an A, but I'll give them a B, at least for right now. I think even if there are more things that I think of where I'm like, wait, that doesn't quite make sense. Because there were a couple, like, I didn't really, I kind of realized as I was saying it during this, how much I think they kind of leave Emily to the wayside. There might be some more things like that that I think of. It's doing an interesting update on characters. I'm glad it exists, which might sound like a neg, but for the amount of unnecessary sequels out there, I think I'm glad this exists is almost the highest compliment you can give a legacy sequel. So I'll end it there. If you're new here, do all the like and subscribe. We have a bunch of other stuff. I have an 8-minute video about the first Devil Wears Prada video. Hopefully the algorithm brought you back here if you already saw that. And yeah, we have a lot of stuff. We have podcasts on a ton of movies, including Devil Wears Prada 1 and about 100 others. And yeah, there will be more coming your way if you choose to stick around. So thanks for watching. See you next time.